Yeah, we'll be covering that today, maybe early tomorrow morning. That's the theory. It's part of it. So evolution, both of um, matter as well as the conscious entity, is part of what we'll cover. The, the basic theory, and then if you want to drill down, we can. Uh, yeah. It's called Jagriti Kiram, Awakening Progression, and but in a nutshell, really, it's the man that first takes off, becomes more active, and then the vritti becomes more active, and then the chit becomes more active, and then the buddhi becomes more active, and finally the last one is activated. In a nutshell, that's the story. But then when we take each one and break it down, then it's a lot bigger, really. Um,
It also disprove any of the scientific properties or any maybe
yeah, let's call it deviation instead of saying disprove, because what is proof in science and what we're looking at and what is considered proof here is quite different. Also, what is considered proof here and what is considered proof for pramana in the Indian systems is also significantly different. So it will be difficult to use that word to make the comparison. But yes, the darshan takes some significantly differing stance from the commonly held scientific views. Number one, in science, there is no self. There is no talk of self really. There is no self. It's just the brain. There is no talk of consciousness and there are no 10 activities. Okay. Reason कुछ भी हो, we can talk of the reason. So that's one significant deviation. The second is here, we'll see when we proceed that. So there's no discussion again on the, if you take Astitva Darshan, so the first one in Jivan, the whole of Jivan is missing. All of self is missing. It's just the brain. And everything is explained using states of the brain. So that's out the window. When you look at existence, the significant differences are, so both science and this darshan accept that there are atoms and there are molecules and there is evolution in the atom. It deviates where space comes up, and that's what we'll be discussing next. The way space is seen here is different from the way space is seen in science, and then some allied concepts such as light here is seen as having no inherent speed or no inherent motion, whereas in science, very clearly, light is seen as electromagnetic radiation. Okay, so that's the second significant difference. And science does not comment on human relationships at all. When it does, which is the third one, if you really see from our portion, science is not dealing with two-thirds of the portion. It is not dealing with the self. It doesn't talk of family, society, and how to live. Okay. What it does do is it takes, if you take, again, when you take fields that use a scientific method for their study, let's say social science or psychology, etc., using mathematical models and using, data from talking to people, they're able to build patterns of the way society is, etc. But pretty much all that conclusion seems to go, towards where animals are or something to do with animals in that way. Yeah. So it's really, I mean, to give you an example, just so we know, and then we proceed. Uh, I, it was again a news item that I thought I'll share here, and then I forgot. Uh, anyway, if I find it, I'll share it. Yeah. So that's really and the definition of happiness again here as a subjective. So really in science, there is no seer. The scientist is not studied. In science, there is no study of the scientist, only of the science. So we're dealing of the method and the object of inquiry, which is external reality. So using the scientific method, the scientist cannot understand why he has a problem with his wife. Whereas here we've seen that people undergo, uh, significant, um, sometimes changes in their relationship after having listened to or undergone. Because one, the introductory workshop is really a beginning. I would recommend for those of you, probably also mentioned it at the end, you should attend one or two more sessions or one or two more facilitators, because each one tends to focus a little more on different areas. And really, we are all this put together, not just one aspect. I've tried to lay out the basic form of the entire skeleton of the teaching as much as possible and its connectivity. But there'll be other people who will focus on the relationship aspect, or even our relationship with money, for instance. Some people spend up to a day on that, and up to 2 to 3 days on relationships and family. We will also cover it from a more fundamental standpoint. So a lot of people see significantly improved relationships. I would not say perfectly, because it doesn't become perfect. But yeah. So in that, from the finding point of view, that's where science would differ. One is there's no self, there's no talk of self. And second, अस्तित्व में space and light are two significant differences. And there is no beginning. So there's no beginning to the universe. Eh? There is a source. The source is existence itself. But there's no primal cause. We'll get there. Yeah.
Are there also some areas which are like whatever is in confinement of just Jeevan Vidya study? Are there more areas that can be explored or are more to be uncovered?
In the darshan itself,
Yeah, yeah, or it looks like it's defined and there's nothing there. Or there can be further studies or you can
so as far as theory of existence is concerned, to do with knowledge of existence, I would think personally that reconciling what is being said in the darshan versus the latest, uh, positions in science regarding the origin of the universe and the nature of ultimate reality, that can be a dialogue. All right? Not that anything will change in the darshan, but to be able to better explain it. That's one aspect. The second is that is really left for people like me and you who are wanting to study the darshan or trying to do it, is um, to better understand, I would say, the individual activities in the cell. It has received significantly robust treatment in the darshan, but oftentimes you feel that a particular activity, needs more elaboration on how it functions. So that's another area. The third is regarding the method of study. All the raw material is there, but I've personally been spending quite some time trying to put it together, the method of study. This is for the introductory workshop, or for the further one. The third aspect is in education, on how to get this into education. So as a group, we're working on developing textbooks. Gauri is part of a team that works on the English curriculum to teach this to children. Uh, since, so both the content as well as the delivery, the what's called as the pedagogy, all that needs a lot of work. So the implementation part, as far as the theory is concerned, nature of ultimate reality, method of study, and implementation. ये तीन जगह है. Everything else is pretty, yeah, take it or leave it, that kind. But I have been able to, I mean, it makes it not just anybody who studies and understands reality based on this darshan will be able to understand everything else very quickly. ये तो हो जाता है very fast. It makes you very fast. Cognition becomes very fast. Your ability to understand other darshans and uh, kind of really say where it's coming from becomes very quick, which maybe anybody in any other darshan would also say. But yeah. So this is darshan. This is called Astitva darshan. What we're doing now, dekhna. Yeah. And so in darshan, what is there to see? Existence is there to see. And when we look around, we see that these four exist on this planet. Okay. And they each have appearance. They each have properties, which the appearance or form is clearly visible to the naked eye also. But really the properties are something we study, and not just in modern science. We've learned the properties of iron. We went ahead and built the Qutub Minar. We understood how wheat grows. That's a property of wheat. That's how we were able to cultivate wheat. We were able to understand the property of cows and elephants and horses, which is how we were able to domesticate them. Yeah, we were able to understand the properties of cotton and how to make a little loom and spin cloth. So that's how we've been able to work with nature, by really understanding how nature behaves, which is the properties of nature. So that too is part of Astitva Darshan. But you remember we said that we want to understand the fundamental aspects of these, because we want to know what is our basic position with it. Like am I in opposition with nature, or am I in coexistence with nature? Out of the two, which one is true? Okay. And how do I understand right and wrong? How do I understand whether I'm killing a tree or I'm not killing a tree? So for that, I have to understand what a tree is. So that forms part of what we are calling as Astitva Darshan here. And we covered appearance and properties, which is form and properties. Is the frequency of my voice, does it put you to sleep? No. People have told me in the past, and including my wife. I just remember that long back somebody told me your voice sounds like a drone. It's like a helicopter drone, like the whirring of a helicopter blade or like a drone. So then after some time, ये हो जाता है. That happens sometimes with people who have more basal voices, and also when the delivery is not very animated. As in, I'm not packing a punch into my voice, trying to wake you up and inspire you into understanding this and becoming environment friendly and becoming better human beings and all that. Because I don't see the point in that. Yeah. Yeah, because the thing is, you will anyways go back to who you were once you leave the room. What's the point in me jumping up and down and trying to, make it to understand? And hey, manav, jaldi jagrit ho jao, dekho duniya kahan ja raha hai. He'll not. I mean, that's an exaggeration, but that tends to keep people, alive and interested. But really, all the work needs to be done inside. Here, we don't get in. Nothing much moves. Um, वॉइस नहीं है. देखिए, आप कम से कम आप एक व्यक्ति तो बोल रहे, so I'll continue. But I can't do anything about the voice. It's become what it is. Zoom, हाँ. कैसे करें इसको? एक काम करता हूँ, इसको एक एक करके लेते हैं. तो ये क्या बुक से कॉपी पेस्ट किया ना? वो बुक में टेबल बनी हुई है. नहीं, it's an image, so won't be able to. अभी बड़ा है. This is good enough. Okay, so we'll do it this way. Okay. So we'll take the basic nature just to give you an idea. So the basic nature of the material order, okay, which is called its swabhav, is composition and decomposition. So all the changes that we see in matter, in water, in air, alright, although they exhibit different properties, hydrogen sulfide, finally what they're doing is they are enabling some kind of composition, or they're decomposing. So this is the value that, let's say, a stone brings to the rest of the material order, which is essentially being available for this composition and decomposition. And we know today that all this composition and decomposition takes place according to specific chemical or physical laws. It's not that some random composition will take place, right? There are allowed or permitted combinations in nature, and that's what happens. For example, you'll get hydrogen sulfide, you may not get hydrogen nitride, like H2N is not possible. Okay, because that follows the laws of chemistry. Yeah. But the swabhav really is composition and decomposition. Just say a patthar hai, you have the stone, the value, the basic nature of the stone is that it will exist and after some time it may just break up and then it will form again. Okay, and even at the molecular level. So that's called composition and decomposition. What happens in plants? What is the basic or essential basic nature or essential characteristic or swabhav of plants? So there is composition and decomposition because plants are made of matter. Finally, you have hydrogen and nitrogen and phosphorus and a little bit of potassium and all that in plants. But the other thing that we see in plants really is what is called as enhance and worsen. This is called sarak and marak in Hindi. What does that mean? There will be some plants which are good or beneficial for the growth of some plants and the same plant may not be beneficial for the growth of another plant. Okay. So the common example that I take that I know of is the Nilgiri tree. They planted all these eucalyptus trees all over the country, agricultural scientists, because they thought it will be good. But really, when you have a Nilgiri tree, we are told that nothing else is able to grow around it, except it sucks more water. उसका जो गंध है, उसका जो smell है, उसके कारण भी कुछ नहीं हो पाता है. Okay. So there are certain trees next to which certain kinds of shrubs will grow, and there are certain trees next to which certain different kinds of shrubs will grow. So the effect that that tree has on its surrounding is to either enhance or allow the growth of something and not allow the growth of something. And this is natural. And what does this basically do? It allows nature to kind of maintain a balance. Alright? Because if everything was allowed to grow or were to grow everywhere, then you would have an imbalance. And when we go further into the relationship with nature, we can all study, and we have some people who work closely with nature. By observing, we can see that nature has a very nice and intricate balance once we start appreciating it. Yeah? And that will be not at the level of swabhav, but at the level of properties and qualities. Okay, but for now we can see that there is enhancing or worsening in the plant. Okay, when we come to animals, what do we see? In the body of the animal, you still have composition, decomposition. The body of the animal is formed, it grows, and then it decomposes, and then it dies out. Okay, but there is also, in addition to composition, decomposition, just like in plants, it also has the ability to enhance and worsen. What does that mean? Let's say you have the body of a snake, which has poison, and let's say if a crow eats it, for instance, the crow may die. So the snake's body was worsening, right? Maratha for who? For the crow. But the same snake is for food for the which animal eats snake? सांप को क्या खाता है? Mongoose. Peacock eats snake. Mongoose eats snake. We have a nice big mongoose in our garden in Pune. पहाड़ से लगा हुआ, and we have 3 peacocks on in the hill. Okay, and we have nice big snakes in our garden. Nice fat snake. Rat snake. We call it dhaman. It eats rats and becomes fat. And a cobra once in a while. Not very often. My neighbor's garden got a cobra.
Taiwan.
Yeah.
It's a country where the people manufacture some sort of wine out of the blood of cobra.
Acha.
It's available in the net also.
They make a wine out of the blood of the cobra.
And that is very popular there, very demanding, very costly.
Acha.
We cannot believe it because the biggest poisonous creature on this earth is the cobra, and next comes octopus.
Yeah.
But they prepare some sort of.
Yeah. So they would have probably, obviously, doing something to it by means of which the poisonous aspect of the component or the chemical undergoes a change. Otherwise, you can't drink it. Yeah.
Poison is in the mouth of the cobra, not in the blood. So if you are taking blood, it's absolutely harmless.
Yeah. There is a gland at the back that is connected to the teeth, and when it hits you, there's basically a compressive mechanism at the back that injects the poison inside.
When it comes back.
Yeah. So it's the toxin is here, not in the blood. Oh yeah, obviously. So they're using the blood, then yeah, they can have it. But we'll find out whether it is moral to do so. And why. So in the animals, there are some animal body which is food for one animal, but the same animal body will be poison for another animal body. What about those animals in which we have the self? Like I said, there are some animals in which, so some animals only have nerve cells, some animals have brain, and some animals have a full brain. Okay. So all these three are called animals. So for an instance, for example, for this is a cockroach. Example for this is a dog or a tiger or a chicken or a goat. And example of this would be what? Maybe earthworms and smaller creatures. Little ticks. Even ticks have brains. So all you can get animals in these three categories. So what happens to animals that have cells? In the animals, in the self, the swabhav is to be cruel or akrur, brutal or gentle. That is their swabhav. Okay. What is the basic nature? It is basically to be brutal or gentle. And this is its participation with all other animals. What does that mean? For instance, if you take a tiger, is a tiger gentle or brutal? Cruel or akrur? Brutal. Why? Because it's carnivorous and it's not an easy animal to be around. But is the tiger brutal or gentle for its own pups? Is gentle. Yeah. Similarly, a cow. Is a cow gentle for its own calf? Yes. And if you go next to a cow that has just given birth to the calf, it's brutal. I went next to this one. It did this. And Devika said, Appa, dongo, dongo. And she was scared. I said, Bandha, why? Don't worry. And the mother was getting very agitated. I went and touched the calf. And you know what it did? So it tried to pull at the rope. It couldn't because so here is the rope tied and this is the neck, right? And ye calf tha. So it's trying to lunge at me. I'm just like half a foot away and I'm safe. So what it did was after 3 attempts, it turned around. All right. So the length of the body पीछे इधर था. So when ये जब घूमा ऐसे, the body became this way and the calf was able to go under its feet to protect the calf. I showed it to Devika ki dekho, and of course the calf tried to suckle it. They were trying to catch somewhere, When it's just born, usko milta nahi hai. Some randomly he'll try and grab hold of the thun to start feeding. So we see in animals that the swabhav is both brutal and gentle. Some animals are more brutal and less gentle. These are typically called carnivorous animals like leopards, cheetahs, tigers, etc. And some animals like the herbivorous animals are gentle. And we see that both varieties exist in nature, and this ensures uh, an inherent balance in nature when you have both carnivorous as well as herbivorous animals in nature. When we come to humans, just like in the animal body, the human body too undergoes composition. It also undergoes decomposition. And the human body is formed in the womb of the mother, of the female of the species. And does the mother create the body? Does the human mother create the body? No. The body grows inside the mother's womb. She is not creating it. So, she supplies the milk, but she is not converting the milk into fat and blood and muscle. That's happening on its own. But is the mother do it? Does the mother think अभी किडनी बनाना है आज से? हैं? अरे मैं तो भूल ही गई एक लंग को. नहीं, कल डबल कर दूंगी. पॉसिबली नहीं है. हमारे mentality, if the child had to grow according to our mentality, imagine what havoc would have happened with the children. कंपटीशन उधर भी आता. मेरा बेटा 8 फुट का निकलेगा तब तक मैं बाहर नहीं करूंगी उसको. Luckily, we cannot grow babies according to our imagination. Otherwise, they would have been hell to pay. No, it's just not possible. So, yeah. So, रिफाइन करती रहूंगी, लड़का ही पैदा होगा. But that's because of the men. I think महिलाओं को they like girls. The men, female infanticide was a male problem. I think women like girls. Most women I have met say that I wanted a girl. Lot of them, maybe not all. Some have boys. Uh, Girls are also more likely to take care of you compared to a boy, probability wise. In unawakened consciousness, underdeveloped consciousness, mein, your probability is higher with the girl because a little more sensitive. Boy बोलेगा मुझे दर्शन करना, he'll leave you and go away. Right? You say, I become spiritual in nature, please take care of yourself, I'm going and not come back. uh, but really, it's very interesting that an Italian mother eats pasta, a North Indian mother eats roti sabji, a South Indian mother eats sambar, and they all end up becoming a kidney, or lungs, or eyes, or bones, and they all function in the same way. The only difference between the bodies in human beings is the color of the skin, the face cut, which is really the geometrical proportions of your face, okay, and the height of the body. Nothing else. Under the anatomy is exactly the same. Everything comes from soil. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it is fascinating. Everything comes from soil, and imagine the planet, the earth is there and nothing is there, and suddenly something starts breathing, and then it starts multiplying, and then it starts growing, and then it comes up and comes up and comes up, and we call that as a tree. Apne aap. It just shoots up and zoop, it comes up. Yeah. So that's the human body. And with a little bit of attention, when we keep this frame and look at the body seems fascinating. And the body swabhav is also sarak and marak, or to enhance and worsen, which really means that our body is potentially food for some animal and maybe poison for some other animal. Okay. In fact, even for humans, when let's say we have a bacterial infection or we have a viral infection, we like to be away from each other because your threat is going to cause trouble to me, so it's going to worsen me. Okay, so that's called sarak and marak. When it comes to the self in the human being, remember this part was unawakened consciousness. What is the swabhav? Like in animals, we saw it was brutal and gentle, krur and akrur. In human beings, the swabhav, when living in animal consciousness or underdeveloped consciousness, is called dinta, hinta, and krurta, or wretchedness, cunningness, and brutality. What is dinta? Dinta basically means the feeling that I can't take care of myself. So I need somebody else to do it for me. Okay. In which case I will try and take maybe something that belongs to you or blame somebody else for my problems. That is really dinta. Why are we like this? Well, the Britishers made us like this. Why were we like that? Before the Britishers came, the Mughals made us like this. And before that, the Mongols came. Before that, what? Somebody else came. Not because we were stupid. We were always fine. So that's one possible, expression of dinta. What is cunningness? It is called hinta buddhu banana. To make a fool of someone. To be able to take something by, diverting their attention and so on and so forth. So that's called hinta. Okay, that's called cunningness. And brutality. You think human beings are brutal? Do we see brutal people on the planet? Cruel humans दिखते हैं क्या planet पे? There's so many of them. They make it to the newspapers. Do good people make it to the newspapers or do cruel people make it to the newspapers? Who makes the news more? एक बहुत अच्छा आदमी है, किसी को कुछ नहीं कर रहा है. Is he news? No, he is no news. एक आदमी, is creating havoc. He makes it to the news. What does that mean? That the current human readership, right, derives pleasure from looking at violence. If nobody read papers in which violence was reported, then the papers would stop reporting violence and report good things. There's only one website. There's one website called the Better India. They only publish good stories. And there was one more called Good News India. I think people got so fed up of tired of reading all the bad news. They said, let's have a portal with only good news. So there is a portal called Good News India and one called Better India. And Better India, they put up farming and agriculture related, uh, yeah. And Good News India पहले था 20 साल पहले भी पता नहीं है कि नहीं. But wretchedness, cunningness, and brutality in the self. Okay. And are we brutal? Am I brutal? So there is a range of brutality. I can kill 500 people. I can kill 1 lakh people with a bomb. I may be brutal because I hit somebody. Sometimes I may get brutal with my own son, daughter, or wife if I'm really angry. So there is a brutalness dial. So there is some measure of brutality in all of us. Sometimes very, very minimal, but it may be there. That if we are pushed hard enough, we can also get brutal. So we are not brutal under some conditions, but as the conditions close in, then we can end up becoming brutal. Yeah. Anger, the display of anger is a small measure of the display of brutality. If it is directed at wanting to destroy somebody at that particular instant. Yeah. So again, brutality not just includes killing 6 or 5 million people with a nuclear bomb or even with a sword or a gun and chopping off people's hands and all that. Somebody chopped off some prof's hand in Kerala. I suddenly remember by hand chopping example. Um, he had made some statement and Popular Front of India people went and chopped his hand. Yeah, the right hand. No, the tolerance to brutality is a sign of deenta, wretchedness. If it is only tolerance, if you are not doing anything, it is wretchedness. It's basically fear. You don't know what to do. Because if it is devta, it is not just tolerance, but there would also be understanding. And then we see that the human swabhav is actually dhirta, virta, and udarta, which is basically, courage. It's written here. Steadfastness, courage, and generosity. So if somebody is being brutal or cunning, and I do not get affected by it, but I'm aware of what is happening, and I've taken a deliberate decision not to because I know that at that point in time nothing else can be done. That is called being steadfast or called dhirta. So to maintain one's position in human conduct, even when there is inhumanity outside, is called dhirta. Okay. To be able to communicate what is correct despite there being inhumanity is called virta or courageousness. And to really give one's mind, body and wealth for goodness or for humanness is called udarta or generosity. So today, if you see what we call as generosity is giving our money, but typically we want something in return. We want my father's name, my grandfather's name. I want a puraskar. That is what we call as generosity. Whereas here, you're also helping not just in money, but also, using your, when I said body, it means helping somebody physically or also mentally. That's also called udarta. So, yeah, no, daya is kindness. So here udarta is generosity. So daya, so here in this darshan, daya, what daya really means is giving knowledge to somebody is daya. That will come under generosity if it is done for that moment. Okay, it will come under generosity. Because remember, the entity that is undergoing unhappiness is really the self. So when you are trying to improve somebody's lot or trying to help someone, you have to improve their state of consciousness, not just the body. And of course, if you are feeding chapati, that act itself may ensure that he remains dinta or remains wretched because now he is never going to be able to stand up on his own because he is anyways getting the chapati. There is a person who begs in Bombay. His name is Vikas Jain, and his net worth is 7.5 crores. पेपर में आया था दो फ्लैट है बॉम्बे में 3-3 करोड़ का, है ना, 2.5 करोड़ का एफडी है, and somewhere near Churchgate, this thing, and his family members have been trying to tell him कि there is enough, you stop now. 7.5 करोड़ है, अभी तो बंद करो. But he got used to that begging. It's come in the paper. I'll pull it up, show it you in the evening. Richest beggar in the world बोल के टाइटल आया था. So you can wretchedness will can increase 7.5 करोड़. इधर हम एमबीए करके, है ना, जॉब करके, टाई पहन के बोर्ड रूम में बैठे. We cannot earn 7.5 crores. Just go to Bombay. That's why everybody goes to Bombay. See, I mean, the land of opportunities, like New York. So, uh, so you see, what we've done today is what do we call as courage today? What we call as courage today, and I have these definitions in slides below. Right now, I'm just explaining them. And of course, if you want to study them, you'll have to apply yourself. Just listening to what I am having to say will not really help you on the point. But what do we call as courage today? We call courage today as fighting. So actually, forms of brutality are called courage. This is called Virta. Na Dhirta, Virta, Udarta. So name some Indian kings and queens who are called Veer. The very famous ones. Shivaji, Jhansi ki Rani. है ना? Even in the army, we give the awards. Now, what is it called? Paramveer Chakra. It's called PVC medal. Paramveer. Right? So, you see, because the consciousness is underdeveloped, we've taken the behavior of animals and given them human names. But the definition is still not human. And why? If we were to reflect for a moment here, right now, do you want to live with wretchedness, cunningness, and brutality, or deenta, heenta, krurta? Or do you want to live with dhirta, virta, udarta? What is naturally acceptable to you? Nobody wants to be told you're cruel. If they pause and reflect, उसके पहले मुंह चूच बना के I feel I'm, strong. But if he pauses and reflects, you will find that this answer is the same for every human being. Nobody wants to be here. And what happens when we're here? What happens when we're like this? It conflicts with our own real power because this is how I want to be and this is how I am, and now this is not matching. Yeah, so it creates an inner conflict within. And nobody wants to see me this way, so it also creates havoc outside. So this is another reason why this plane of consciousness for living is really called Jeev Chetna or animal consciousness, because although we've incrementally improved from where animals are, we still have traces of animalness left in us. Alright? And the reason for that is the Jivan actually, is promoted from here to here to here. One of the reasons for that. Yeah. So when the Jivan is here, it is called Jivanikram. We'll see it later. There are only 15 of you and nobody's protesting, so I'm just going to say everything. So they're like 50 and 100. Have to be very careful of what I say when, because then, people may say, how can you say that and all that. Every prediction is human. There is nobody other than the human who is labeling these things. We have to decide whether our labeling is accurate. For instance, we say water is made of hydrogen, 2 parts of hydrogen, 1 part of oxygen. This is universal truth. But who is calling it a universal truth? You and I decide. There is nobody besides you and me to validate that that is a universal truth. Nobody. Even in physics. We say the laws are natural, but it needs us to say that it is natural. and there is nobody out there to say whether we are correct. We have to ourselves decide that it is correct. So we've been able to evolve the tool using which, we are able to convince ourselves that this is correct. And that one of those tools is called the scientific method. Really with its mathematics and its logic and its, very robust way of testing out certain things, predicting, creating a hypothesis, and people, there are like 4 or 5 um, uh, kind of foundational aspects of the scientific method. So people have put in a lot of effort there. How do you know something is correct? कैसे पता चलेगा? So there is measurability, there is falsifiability. Uh, 4-5 है. If you read up, on scientific method, the theory of ladenness, ऐसा है 4-5 है. So we've evolved ways to ensure that we know we're not fooling ourselves. And that's when we say this is universal, and that's how it goes and makes it into our textbook. Like we opened up enough human bodies to realize that all of them have a heart. So we write human beings have a heart. We're just blindly predicting that everybody has this. Praman, you can't open and see. सबको थोड़ी खोल के देखते बैठेंगे. हाँ, इसका भी है, इसका भी है. 15-20 देख लिया, and then we figured, and then based on that you impute and you say this is correct. And we'll see when we look at the rest of existence. The Darshan has a very beautiful explanation of why that's even possible. And the explanation very simply is that, reality is reflected onto consciousness. It is reflected onto the conscious unit. And the conscious unit can really read and see reality. For instance, do all of you believe that I'm sitting here? If somebody comes and tries to convince you that I am a mirage, would you accept it? No. And you don't have to touch me to really realize that, right? They'll say, what if you're an AI generated image? You're not, exactly. So it's not just a belief. Now, yeah, so that is knowledge. And there's no verification. You still not touched me since we came. No, eyes can deceive. This time, Vladimir Putin gave a speech in which he was talking to his own AI generated image in a talk show. इस तरफ व्लादिमीर पुतिन है, दूसरी तरफ उसका AI generated image है. This one is questioning this one, and people are made to guess who's the real president, and they could not guess it right. Imran Khan is campaigning in Pakistan. He's in jail using his AI generated self on TV. That's already happening. So we talk to a scientist and challenge that notion. But what I'm trying to get to something beyond that is that not just because you can see my form here, but just based on our interaction, you know that this is a real person. From the things I'm saying, from the way it's not recorded, it's not just data coming from here and there, right? So we know what is true. Yeah, you can intuit it, you can sense it, and that feeling is not sensory. It's something beyond that, right? So this is the swabhav or basic nature of underdeveloped consciousness and developed consciousness. And now let's look at the innateness. Innateness or dharma or order or religion is also the aim, is the fundamental aspect of that order. So what is the innateness of the material order is its existence. So that which cannot be separated from something is its dharma. Okay, so if you take this laptop or this stick, or you take my spectacles, you cannot take away the fact that it exists from it. So it will exist. It can change form, okay, but it will continue to exist. So this is called astitva dharma. If you take plants, their basic aim is not just existence or to be, but to be and grow. So growth is inherent to the plant. If it stops growing, we say the plant is dead. And is a dead plant part of the pranic order, or does it go back to the soil? So we say it has gone back to being soil. वो पेड़ को यदि मारना है, they say you have to, somebody has to tell me how to kill a eucalyptus tree, by the way. There's one behind our house they're trying to kill and it's not dying. Somebody told me if we chop off the bark around the tree and leave the stem exposed. Apparently, all the nutrients that the tree pushes up is through the bark. That's where it makes its food. So if you want to slow down the growth of a tree, you just chop off the bark and leave the stem, uska trunk ko, and it will slow down the tree. But this shameless eucalyptus tree is thriving despite me doing all that. रिंग बनाया है 6 इंच का रिंग है पूरा. नहीं ना बेशरम, वही तो नहीं नहीं जा रहा है वो. देर इज अ प्लांट कॉल्ड बेशरम, यहाँ भी होता है. नॉर्थ में उसका नाम बेशरम है. यू नो वाई? कहीं भी होता है वो. पानी नहीं है तो भी होता है, मतलब कोई शर्म ही नहीं है उसको. पीपल आर कॉल्ड इट बेशरम. हाँ, है. ज्वाइन हो गया. ओके. दो इंच. तो मैंने तो 6 इंचेस का बनाया. नेक्स्ट टाइम यू कम आप कुछ करेंगे. uprooting ತುಂಬಾ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಇದೆ. It's very big. We had to pay. See, it became so big that one branch broke and fell on our, on the gate and crashed, broke everything. And the tree was so huge, if it had fallen on our roof, it would have broken the. My brother has an AC on, it would have broken the air conditioner, it would have broken our solar panels, सब टूटता था. So we wrote to the Pune Municipal Corporation, called them, gave the thing. They came, checked. They said, you have to do it at your own cost, so you will have to pay for it. And he gave me the number of his contractors. They said it will cost 8,000 rupees. He got an electric cutter and they took away the wood also. They took 8,000 rupees and the wood also. Okay. तो अभी है पूना है ना, इंडिया है. अच्छा ले जाओ भाई जो भी है, बिकॉज इट ब्रेक्स द पैनल. 30,000 रुपए का सोलर पैनल है. तो स्ट्रक्चर मैसिव ट्री है. मतलब उसका ब्रांचेस इतना मोटा था, ह्यूज. अभी स्प्राउट हो गया, बढ़िया हरा और सुंदर दिख रहा है अभी तो. इट हैज गिवन सम 50 स्प्राउट. कपड़म. हाँ, रूट अंदर. हाँ. अच्छा, यू डिडंट लिव. अच्छा, इसका प्रॉब्लम ये था कि हमको परमिशन मिला ओनली टू कप, मतलब 20 फीट छोड़ना था उसका तना, बिकॉज डिफॉरेस्टेशन इज नॉट अलाउड इन द सिटी. So all the branches are taken, और वो 20 फुट का तना छोड़ा with no leaves. Somebody recently told me you take like the big size drill, you put 5 drills into it, and you fill salt and hing in it. Salt and hing, but hing sells at 16,000 rupees a kg. हमको खुद को खाने को मिलता नहीं, मैं पेड़ में डालू हिंग. Very good quality hing comes from Bangalore, SS Pandian and Sons, SSP. Now it has become 24,000. Original hing क्या है तो 24 से 28,000 रुपए किलो है. बाकी जो फैक्ट्री प्रोड्यूस थिंग है, you get it for 7-8,000. SSP का. SSP, you use SSP in Bangalore? SS Pandian. That's the hotel brand. That is a cheap one for hotels. That's not the original hing. I mean, that's what he's remaking in the, in the lab somewhere. The one that is importing from Iran or Afghanistan costs 28,000 to 30,000 a kilo. So you'll get it in 10-gram crystals and 8-gram crystals. Hing. Only salt? Achha, zinc plays a layer of salt and. Okay. So moral of the story is, it is very difficult to kill a growing tree. Its dharma is growth. आप कुछ भी करो, it tries to come from somewhere, and then you have to try very hard to make it stop coming. Yeah. And you see, the body of the human child is the same. You cannot stop it from growing. और बच्चा हो तो बड़ा होकर ही रहेगा. You can't. I keep telling Devika, you're the right size. I get to, don't become big, because then I cannot play with you, and then you'll run away. So when she was 3 years old, I would ask her, Devika, once you grow up, will you stay with Appa or will you run away and get married? She used to say, I'll run away and get married. Then I would cry, oh, Devika bhag jayegi, what will Appa do? I'll be so sad. Then she said, okay, okay, don't cry, I won't run away and get married. Then I told her, एक काम करो, मेरी भाई की बेटी है. I said, why don't you marry her? She said, good idea. Then I can stay next to you. Now she's become a little big. Then I tell her, why don't you marry Annie? She said, Chup. I said, bye. Don't marry girls. You have to marry boys. And उसको पता है she's 8 years old. So, but the body keeps growing. Our bodies keep growing. We never ask for it to grow. Did you ask your body to grow? No. And kitna we try karo to stop it from growing old. It will grow old and it will decay because that is its dharma. Which is why immortality of the body is a foolish idea. It's not going to work. We can extend our lifespan. See that scientist I told you, this cosmologist. He thinks we have extended our lifespan. No. We are allowing the body to reach its full potential by preventing some disease, maybe preventing some, untimely degeneration or some kind of imbalance due to high blood pressure, etc. And that's not just because of time. There are people in whose houses people on average live up to 95. यहाँ कोई है? Previous generation 95, 98, 90, 92 ऐसे बहुत हैं. Gaudi's family के घर में जो elders हैं, they're all 90 plus. Nobody dies before that. They're all there. So I would joke 92. My grandfather died at 90 and he retired when he was 60 and he worked for 30 years in the railway and 30 years he took pension. तो मैं बोला इसीलिए रेलवे चौपट हो रहा है. तुम 30 साल काम किया और 40 साल जिएगा वो रेलवे. हाउ विल द रेलवे सर्वाइव बॉस? यू हैव टू डाई विद इन 20-25 ईयर्स तभी तो प्रॉफिटेबल होगा. नहीं. एंड नाउ द पेंशन इज सो मच. आफ्टर यू टर्न 80 वो फुल पेंशन आता है. हर फादर इज ड्रॉइंग फुल पेंशन. जबरदस्त पेंशन आता है. And he can't move. What will he do with the money? I mean, why are they giving him so much money? मेरे को समझ में नहीं आता है. Okay. मेरे को देने के लिए you will be surprised. मेरे पास कुछ भी नहीं आ रहा है. हमारे साथ देखिए एक प्रारब्ध भी होता है एक आदमी का. मेरे पास फोकट का पैसा आज तक कभी रुका ही नहीं. मेरे को यदि 20,000 रुपए कहीं से मिला, I will end up losing 40,000 rupees in the next year. मेरा ऐसा वो राशि है. Free money does not come to me. वो कभी आया भी, it goes away. That is one part of existence जो इस दर्शन में नहीं समझा गया. You don't understand why it happens to you. Why calamity befalls. You will be surprised. So there is existence and growth in plants and existence and growth in the human body and existence and growth in the animal body and existence and growth in the human body, and you cannot stop it. We cannot take away growth from our body. And decaying is actually a form of growth. Yeah, so it grows, it continues, and then it shrivels up. So what happens in the cell? In animals that have the self, there is the expectation to live in self. Hence, it is called Jivan. Jine ki asha. And what wants to live? It is the man. When you see a dog, when you see a chicken, when you see a goat, and it tries to survive, it is that conscious entity, right? At the level of man that is trying to survive, because you now have an entity in existence. See how beautiful evolution itself is. First there was stones, there was nothing, and gas. It forms solid, and then something starts growing, it starts multiplying, right? And then you have something that not just multiplies but wants to maintain its own existence. This is called the will to live. So the self has the will to live in animals. So it has the will to live or the hope to live, Jine ki asha. And also in us, we have the Jine ki asha, but our dharma is happiness. Unlike animals, we are not content with just surviving, but we want to survive with happiness. Because if we were to survive, only survive, then this much was enough for us. We could have used the body, maintained the body with food, fear, coitus and sleep, ahar, nidra, bhay, mritu, just like animals. At the most, we could have had fun with the senses. We didn't need a lifestyle, we didn't need a family, we didn't need a society, we didn't need the intellect, and we didn't need these answers. So that's the fundamental difference between us and animals. All right, that animals have the will to live, and human beings have the will to live with happiness. And when we explore happiness, it turns out that happiness is actually comprehensive happiness across all these areas, not just material. I mean it behaviorally, intellectual, spiritual, across this entire network from the individual all the way up to the international. I'm not satisfied or fulfilled anywhere short of that. Okay, that's the agency owner of the person we left at home with my इन-लॉज. वो जो आदमी है ना उसका ओनर है, उनका कोई काम नहीं. He has to be there. If my father-in-law falls or cannot get up, he has to pick him up and make him sit and call us. So he's waiting for him to fall. 12 दिन till actually he has not fallen. That agency guy called. I'll find out. No, it's okay. Agency guy called. Huh? We'll speak to you in Marathi. I'll call him later. Okay, so in us we have the expectation to live with happiness. What happens in developed consciousness? This expectation gets converted to ability to live. इतना ही है, इतना ही शिफ्ट होना है ना. The expectation to live is converted to the ability to live with comprehensive happiness. Okay. Yeah. 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 So animals not just have the will to live, but we see that in many animals there is some bit of sentiment at the level of man. Equivalent है, but उसका छोटा part है. Not that intense or not that long, and does not reach the tip. It's at the level of man. वो जो मन में जो experiential बताया था ना, there were three, right? Sense-based tasting, values-based tasting, and purpose-based tasting. Animals don't have purpose-based tasting. I mean, it will not go and have a conversation with another elephant कि तू क्यों पैदा हुआ और मैं क्यों पैदा हुआ. That's not going to happen, है ना? कि ये humans हमको क्यों मार रहे हैं. But the second one happens, and yeah, this is there in elephants. It's there with dogs. There are these. There's a story. Yeah, yeah. Not just that. Yeah, yeah. People who have dogs and where the owner does not come home, the dog will not eat. Dogs will not eat if you don't give the food to them in their plate. These city dogs are also very pampered, no? ये विलेज कुत्ता तो कुछ भी खा लेगा. वो सिटी डॉग उसमें भी आखड़ है. सिटी मतलब he will not eat if you don't give it to it in that particular plate. There was this very famous movie that was made with this dog that Kai Hacho Hichi, Hachiko. See, I suddenly, for some reason, I remember the actor who was in it, Richard Gere. बराबर. बाप रे, I don't know when I saw that movie. Suddenly याद आया. So in Japan, it's a story from Japan. For 10 years, the master goes and he is killed in an accident and he lives alone with the dog. हार्ट अटैक में मर जाता है. बट वही है, जापान इज सच अ लोनली सोसाइटी. नोबडी इवन न्यू दैट ही हैड अ डॉग बैक होम. इंडिया में होते तो चार चार आदमी आता, उसका सामान उठाता, डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करता, है ना, कुत्ते को भी खिलाता. So for 10 years, it goes and waits at the station at that time every day. And the people around the station start feeding it. And then finally the dog dies.
तो ऐसे
हाँ, उसका स्टैच्यू बनाया स्टेशन के सामने. So even today when you go to the station, there is a statue of that dog, not of the owner.
तो ये
So human beings want novelty,
तो अगर
If the
dogs
guy's wife had waited for him, so he would have sent the kutta waited.
तो भैया अगर ये डॉग्स एलिफेंट्स एंड एनिमल्स है, दे आर आल्सो हैविंग सेंटिमेंट्स और इमोशंस. तो हम क्यों डिस्टिंग्विश कर रहे हैं कि ह्यूमन सोल्स और ह्यूमन कॉन्शियसनेस वांट्स टू लिव इन हैप्पीनेस एंड दे ओनली हैव द विल टू लिव. व्हाट इज द डिफरेंस बिटवीन these two?
No, really that We are not satisfied if that's not happening. In them, there is the what you would call just the very minimal beginnings of the feeling of happiness or unhappiness, trace amounts or trace instances in some species under some conditions. It's not a constant presence. It doesn't define their being. Like you look at that child, it's being fed, उसको सब है, उसके बाद भी हल्ला करता है, क्या है वो? देखिए ना, वो constantly somebody, it wants something, यही happiness. You cannot remove happiness from that child. And what is this happiness? I want to have my way. जिद, मन का जिद है उसका. देखिए उसका डिमांड है, अभी मैं जाऊंगा हल्ला करेगा वो, जबकि उसका पेट भरा है, उसको ठंडी नहीं लग रही घर, उसके बाद भी उसको प्रॉब्लम है. ये है. जबकि इफ इट इज अ पपी ऑफ अ डॉग और अ काफ, यू लुक एट दैट काउस काफ, वो आराम से खड़ा है, उसको कोई मतलब ही नहीं है, उसको इट गेट्स टू suckle the mother twice a day and it's just standing, it just grow old. And somebody will come and milk it every day. एक दिन भी उसको विचार नहीं आता है यार, रोज ये आदमी आके दूध लेके जाता है. हाँ? Not once does any cow wonder, does the mother wonder that this guy is making a fool of me and taking away my milk. It was meant to be for my cow. इसको लात मारो, उसको पूछते ही नहीं है. देखो, it does all that, but it does not realize. विचार नहीं है, नहीं है विचार. If that kid has a bottle, you try catching his bottle. Take that little this is mine, give it back to me. खींच लेगा वापस. अरे he started ruling that tile there yesterday. I'm telling you, no. He said this tile is mine. You get out. So human babies, we have all this. We have ownership. So happiness is an integral part of our being. Can't separate it. Even at the man. When you go up to the vritti, as you start growing older, then we also want peace. Because we've earned money, the body is healthy, and we are not just willing to die. उसके बाद भी हम चाह, look at villages में, is the problem only poverty? क्या लगता है? People who stay in the villages? No, 50 प्रॉब्लम है. इसने ऐसा किया, this guy got out, ran away with that guy. इसने इसको गाली दिया. One of our friends said that they were ठेकेदार्स in a village somewhere, and he said his grandfather का एक ही काम था. They were the richest people in the village, and so 78. And so if you're richest, if you have 80 acres, it means you have stick. मतलब ये भी है, डंडा भी है, नहीं तो you cannot hold on to 80 acres. And he said उसके grandfather का एक ही काम था, morning and evening for half an hour, go to the village square and give gali to everybody in the village to show that I am the biggest, that you cannot do anything to me. Go there, sit, shout, and come back. So these are uniquely. So you see, even with some sense of even some little examination, it turns out that we are not just to survive. We are anyway surviving. We were anyway surviving. We didn't need to do all this. Or something else. So we'll proceed. So I already covered all this, right? I kind of explained this. You can read it at home. I can just hide the slides so that. So remember, this is an introductory session. We're not getting into like an in-depth study. Sometimes we can end up discussing some of these things for up to an hour. Just one aspect of, So there are some definitions here for deenta, wretchedness, and cunningness. Okay, cunningness again is of 4 types. I'll just mention it and leave it. It's called chal, kapat, damb, and pakhand. Cheating, duping, deceiving, and hypocrisy. Okay, so when you're cheating, you basically cheat, and the other person doesn't realize that you've cheated. Like I go to buy vegetables, and I quickly modify the scale, and the customer doesn't know that I've cheated them. This is called chal. Okay, what is duping? It is betrayal. So what is betrayal? The customer sees me, okay, comes to know that I'm doing it, and I continue to do it. I'm shameless. उसके बाद भी I do it. What is deceiving? Betrayal after assurances. So the third day I go, I said, boss, last time you gave me 200 gram less. I said, sir, don't worry, henceforth you will get 50 grams extra. उसके बाद मैं फिर से करता हूँ. This is called betrayal. है ना? And what is hypocrisy? Pakhand? I wear the Veshbhusha of a sannyasi and I sell you, duplicate products. This is hypocrisy. Pakhand. Or in the example of the vegetable, when I go to buy vegetable from restaurant, so, sir, wo dekho patang ud raha hai, and I'll quickly take away 50 grams. Okay, so these are four stages of, basically deflecting your attention. Hmm? Do people do this to each other? They do it all the time. Anybody into marketing knows how this is done. This is how goods are sold. And we teach this in management. So when you enter MBA college, you enter with this. When you leave with this. Because basically you have to figure out how to do this without getting caught. हाँ? वो नेक्स्ट स्लाइड में है दीदी अच्छे लोगों के लिए क्रिमिनल इज कमिंग टू द नेक्स्ट स्लाइड ये जो स्लाइड है आप हमारे जैसे लोगों के लिए हमको खराब लगता है हम कभी चीट करते कभी हमको कोई चीट कर देता है सो व्हेन वी आर गेटिंग चीटेड वी आर स्टूपिड वी आर डीन वी फील उसने मुझे ऐसा कर दिया उसने मुझे ऐसा कर दिया एंड वी सिट एट होम एंड वी क्राई व्हाट विल क्रिमिनल डू जूता लेके जाएगा दुकान में अबे पिछले बार 100 ग्राम तो बोला था तो फिर से किया राइट सो दैट्स ऑन द नेक्स्ट स्लाइड सोचिए ना whoever made this observation when you read the book if you read the books it's fascinating that one man can sit and figure out so much by itself I mean even if you don't accept it okay that's a different issue but for one man to have such a wide and robust wide and robust spectrum of sight in itself is something acha 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 okay now I know this was sorry one moment no that was okay so wretchedness so we feel helpless you go to village in India why is there no this thing here together government nahi kar raha hai how much time does it take for the villagers to sit and dig up this thing when you're sitting idle and there is nothing to do you can take a shovel dig up your own sewage नहीं करना है गवर्नमेंट नहीं करेगा that is wretchedness okay so who becomes the serpent one who displays cunningness and the rest of the village will be wretched ये village नहीं चाय ब्रेक तो कनिंगनेस करके वो गुंडों को देखकर विल हैव चाय ब्रुटैलिटी क्रूरता so we use force to secure our own existence मेरे अस्तित्व को to survive I use force and how do I use force I will use it on wealth I force myself into stealing I physically harm or outrage somebody's modesty and I assault someone mentally their feelings and their thoughts or I rule over people and try to force them into doing what I want to do this is brutality so there are various grades of brutality again okay so if you really see what makes the news today is this or the previous one what are we reporting in the news items different forms of cunningness and different forms of brutality 99% of the news is this are the crime news right which is maybe 60% of the paper the remaining 30% is money and how to make money remaining 20% is advertisements on what to buy with that money है ना just three things बीच में there will be some thought for the day छोटा सा एक some spiritual thought for the day टाइम्स ऑफ इंडिया में आता है स्पीकिंग ट्री बेचारा नीचे कहीं तो खड्डे में हिल भी देर ऊपर विल बी देर हाउ टू डिकोड चाइना's करंट असॉल्टिंग ऑफ अरुणाचल प्रदेश नीचे स्पीकिंग ट्री व्हाट स्वामी गंभीरानंदा सेड कोई कोरिलेशन ही नहीं है भैया तू कुछ भी बेच रहा है इधर कुछ बेच रहा है उधर कुछ बेच रहा है नीचे कुछ बेच रहा है आई मीन एज लॉन्ग एज इट सेल्स they don't care you think the paper cares that you get spiritual growth no it is selling the paper to the fellow who reads it and he says buy my paper huh because the mentality of people in the world is that of underdeveloped consciousness हमको उसमें मजा आता है we like that because that's our mentality these are the movies we make and we're making these movies because these are the movies we want to watch the vast majority is actually reveling in this in wretchedness cunningness and brutality that's why we watch action movies that's why we Even if you're not able to hit, you want to see somebody else hitting somebody else, which means that it is a source of my happiness. I enjoy it. Kuch bhi. That because that is my state of mind. Yeah, in when you think of it from the point of when we use our other drishtis to evaluate it, not the Priya Hit Labh, the other one, justice, order, and truth. If we take this frame and you look at it, you won't be able to watch it. So that's what education really has to do for a human being. Part of education really covered, material nature and improved our ability to compute and calculate and really recollect information. But it hasn't really done much in helping us become human. And the other end of the spectrum was all this is anyways a mirage, so you escape this and get out somewhere else. Directly into prem, into love. There's nothing in between. So that's why it sells because people buy it. If nothing happened in the world, if there was no theft, no crime, nothing, what is there to report? Only the goodness. Then the newspaper possibly in the distant future, let us say 2000 years from now, I'm just throwing a number, if human beings become developed, what will get reported in the papers? The paper will become a means to share and exchange information, useful information. So there would be a production section in the newspaper. Those people making jaggery, उसमें यदि fungus आता है, if you do this, fungus will not happen. That's useful information. एक आदमी जैगरी चुरा के लेकर गया. What do I do with that information? है ना? अभी यही न्यूज है ना. My friend, I'll tell you, then I'll just will wrap up. हमारा एक फ्रेंड गुजरात का young guy who did this our 2-year program in Manoti. Then he went back to Gujarat. His uncle was in the Mungfali business. Okay, so Shenga. I'm telling for her. Where kadla? She won't understand Shenga. No, she'll understand where kadla or peanut. In Tamil, it's called where kadla. What's it called Malayalam? Peanut. Kadala. No, kadala curry is different. That is deshi chana. Then kadala curry is also kadala with Malabar parota. Actually, you don't distinguish between the two. See, the kadala curry, because kadala curry is usually eaten in Malabar parota or Ceylon parota. Huh? Kadala. So he had stored 2 trucks of, he thought he'll get into the oil business. Oil business मतलब oil का उत्पादन. So 2 truck शेंगा peanut was dehusked and stored in a godown. The people who are in charge of taking care of the godown, who loaded it, night ko, they stole all the kadla, right? Stole, made it into oil and took away the oil. So when they came the next day, there was nothing. The whole godown was empty. पूरा truck 8 लाख का शेंगदाना था उसमें या 2 truck था 8 लाख वो लोन लेके है ना. That was his first venture into big time oil business. And when they found out, because it's local, right? So when the police went, they found that they had gone to that oil wala. When they went to that oil wala thing, उसके ऊपर भी ताला लगा था. वो पता चला कि they made oil and ran away with the oil, leaving behind that thing, the paste, the cakes. Overnight. गुंजन पनारा का हुआ. गुंजन के साथ हुआ ये. Then he gave up that idea. Then he went to Hyderabad and went and joined an IT company. उधर काम कर रहा है. Huh? No, the irony of it. I mean, the people. What do we laugh at? We laugh at things that are something that we enjoy or things that are of what we would deem as to be ordinary. I mean, the audacity of those people, right? चलिए, चाय and we'll come back.